Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Well, welcome everybody to the Must Read Alaska show. I'm your host, John Quick, and I'm coming to you live from somewhere in Hawaii today. I'm living the rough life here on Kona, and we have got a special treat for you today. We have Representative Kevin McCabe from District 8. But before we go into that, we just want to thank everybody for listening to the Must Read Alaska show. We continue to soar in the charts, beating competition that has $1 million budgets. 5 or 6 full-time staff, $10,000 studio mics, and it's hilarious that Suzanne and I are doing this in our living rooms and kicking the tails out of all these folks with big budgets. So thanks everybody for listening. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, basically anywhere there's a podcast you can find us at. And you can also get our Must Read Alaska app on the Google Play Store or the Android store, or sorry, the Android store or the iTunes store. It's for free. We put a lot of time and money and effort into developing this app, and you can get it for free. If you have used the app, all we ask that you do is leave us a good review. You don't even have to write a review anymore. You just click on the 5 stars and it gives us a 5 star. So, and if you enjoy this podcast, also leave us a review. That helps us kind of tick up into the charts, and we get pretty excited about that. So without further ado, Representative McCabe, thank you so much for coming on the Must Read Alaska show, and welcome to the Must Read Alaska show.
Well, thanks. I certainly like to be on a conservative show that has a very small budget.
That's how we do it. We're fiscal conservatives, and we practice what we preach.
Perfect.
So, for those who may not know a bunch about you, Representative McCabe, tell everybody quickly what district you represent, and maybe how you got involved in politics in the first place. I think that story is always a fun story for folks to hear about. So take it away, a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in politics.
Sure, I appreciate it. Well, right now I'm a representative for District 8, which is Big Lake, a couple of precincts in Meadow Lakes, KGB Road, all the way out to Point McKenzie in that area. And my district's going to expand and I am running again, so it'll be District 30 will be the new one, and that goes all the way up to Anderson and Clear, pretty much west of the parks, takes in Cantwell, Denali Park, and that sort of thing. So still the same core group in Big Lake, but I lose some of the Settlers Bay area and Meadow Lakes, and I gain some folks up north. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. I've enjoyed it immensely. We got in politics. I married this young lady 18 years ago, and within about a year or two, she had gotten involved with Sarah Palin's campaign for governor. And I don't know if you remember that, but Sarah ran a real grassroots, a lot of home meetings and that sort of thing. And Lynn was involved in that, and she sort of drugged me along, and I was like, who are you? I married this sweet girl, and all of a sudden she's become this political animal and eventually I just got involved. We were part of the Joe Miller campaign. We were a big part of Dunleavy's campaign, and I started paying attention to budgets, and budgeting was the big thing. And the PFD, of course, is always a big thing for us these days. And so I started writing about it. I'm a little bit of a prolific writer, and not always very friendly. And I got a bunch of feedback, lots of feedback, and many of those folks said, "Hey, you know what? If you're going to write about this, you might as well be doing something about it. So quit complaining and go to work." So we decided that I would do that. So here I am.
Nice. So you ran 2 years ago. What was the victory tally? How much did you win by 2 years ago?
So I ran against an incumbent Republican, Representative Newman, who'd been in for 15 years, and I think I was 65%
Nice.
in that. And then I ran against a Democrat who really didn't campaign. She was on the ticket, and I think she had filled out some of the division of elections stuff, but she had no signs up, and so I think I was 85% in that one.
Right.
So Big Lake, my district is the most conservative district in the state right now. District 8 is, and I was very comfortable talking to. I didn't meet one person when I was knocking doors that didn't agree, that we didn't find a lot of agreement in our positions. So,
Well, Nikiski will give you a run for your money for the most conservative district. So maybe some other time we can go toe to toe with that. But I looked at some of the things you've done in your past, and I think it's really awesome that you served, I believe, 20 years in the United States Coast Guard, stationed over there in Kodiak. Did that experience help you with what you're doing now as an elected official? And if so, how?
well, yeah, I think so. So in the Coast Guard, especially once you get up into the mid-level leadership, you're leading and managing people that that you didn't hire and you can't fire, and so that's a tool, I guess, that a private sector guy has. Hey, if you don't do this, I'm just going to fire you. Well, you can't do that in the Coast Guard, because these guys enlisted and they deserve to be there, and the Coast Guard wants them there. So you have to learn ways to work with them. And I think by and large, that was probably the biggest thing I took away from there. And in addition to some leadership schools that the Coast Guard sent me through, and of course the fun stuff, flying C-130s and that sort of thing. But I suspect that the leadership and the skills that I learned, managing, I think at one point I had 40-ish mechanics working the night shift for me and with me. And it was a great team. And I think that I learned a lot about teamwork there. So
That's awesome. Well, you had 20 years in the Coast Guard. You got 2 years under your belt as an elected official. What are a couple of your accomplishments that you're most proud of? They could be, anything under the sun, whether it might be these last 2 years as elected official or when you were 20 years deep in the Coast Guard. What are a couple things that you've been super proud of over the years that you've accomplished?
Well, most recently, I would say that I'm most proud of the team that the Republican minority has put together, and being a part of that team. It probably sounds a little corny, but it means a lot to me. It means a lot to be able to sit in caucus with people like Laddie Shaw and Kathy Tilton and Ben Carpenter and Sarah Vance, folks that have been around there and feel part of their team and actually make a difference or try to make a difference together. And that's been a really, I don't know, it's probably what I'm most proud of in the last 2 years is what we have done together as a minority. As far as the other, personal accomplishments, becoming an airline captain on the 747. I was, prior to that, I was with Southern Air Transport, which I flew C-130s out of Anchorage International into all the little bush strips up here in Alaska. So that was kind of fun as well. So I don't know. I almost don't look at those as accomplishments. I look at them as just the peak of having a great time, so.
So it looks like you guys have at least from the outside perspective looking in, that you have a pretty tight knit group of House minority folks that for the most part seem to get along pretty well. Is it still very hard? I think the average person, you're in the thick of it. You're literally, in the battle of it every day, especially when you're in session. And the average person gets little clips here and there. Maybe they see it on, the nightly news, or maybe they get Must Read Alaska or the other folks that are out there. And I think oftentimes it's hard for folks to wrap their minds around, why don't you just get stuff done? And for those of us that maybe are in it a little more in the day to day than the average person, explain a little bit about how hard it is to get something done as the minority, and as somebody who's lived it the last 2 years.
Yeah, I actually have little blurb on my campaign page that kind of describes how a bill is done, how the bill works, and sort of the progression and that sort of thing, and even amendments. But it is the sausage making and the things that the average person don't understand about how the sausage is made, so to speak, is we've basically failed. We've failed to let people know, and maybe it's because we're in Juneau and so far away, and people just can't go watch and see what we do. I tell people all the time, man, if there's a way I could hire you as a staffer so you could come down just for a month and you could see what we have to go through and how we do it. You've heard it before. I'm sure Roger Holland said it. He's continually amazed at the absolutely incredibly slow pace that we do absolutely nothing. And, it just takes so much time, and there's so much working through legal as far as bills, and it's a lot of talking to people and a lot of relationship and that sort of stuff. But in relationships with people that, they don't agree with you, and you don't agree with them, but you still have to work with them and work together. And they might even be on the other side of the aisle. I think, kind of circling back a little, I hate that word, all of a sudden, circle back, but going back to what you talked about accomplishments, Representative Garen Tarr and I worked together on a really simple bill having to do with goat herd shares and relieving them of some of the restrictions that they had for selling milk to the general public. Representative Tarr and I are diametrically opposed, I would guess, on most issues. But when it comes to the state of Alaska and that sort of food security thing, we can work together. So finding those common grounds and working together, I think, is hugely important.
That's awesome. Well, oftentimes I think it's just ludicrous how you just gave a prime example, somebody wanting to sell goat milk and they have to jump through 1,000 hoops, or a hairdresser, and they have to spend more hours getting a professional license, than some kind of medical professionals do. And it's just kind of ridiculous. So I'm glad you're chipping away at that. What is something that maybe next year you're going to focus on, or that you're excited about? I know that, it's the budget's always going to be talked about, the permanent fund's always going to be talked about, but is there something specifically that you're excited about next year that maybe you or the House minority is going to try to tackle?
Well, hopefully it won't be the House minority next year. So
yeah. That's true. Amen to that.
That's the very first thing that we want to tackle. But no, I do have some ideas and some thoughts. There's some things that I came into the legislature that I wanted to accomplish. Very early on, a guy called me and wanted to talk about public banking. He wanted to talk about gold and silver as currency in the state of Alaska. So I do have a bill. It didn't make it very far out of CRA, but this year that I plan on reintroducing next year to make gold and silver currency, so it's not taxable. So if you want to use a 1 ounce gold coin, you don't get borough tax wise on it, on the value of the coin itself. So it's an interesting concept. I've been dealing with a guy on the national level, and I can't remember the organization that he's with, but been really interesting, and I'd love to see that go through next year. Let me think. I'm interested in the Janus decision, and how the Janus decision has to do with union membership and whether or not you can opt out of the union. The current Alaska statutes don't necessarily square with Janus, and I'd like to bring those in line. And frankly, as a guy that drives the Glen Highway all the time, I would love to see the language change so that if you're going slower than the speed of traffic, you need to get in the right-hand lane. That might be a hill too far.
That's awesome. I'd like to see some of our roads in Nikiski fixed, but it's a pie in the sky wish. So,
yeah.
Well, I think that those are two very different but exciting things. I think the concept of using silver or gold as currency in Alaska, could make a lot of sense for folks. That you and I both know there's a lot of folks that have not only big gold mines, but just personal gold mines. Even here on the Kenai Peninsula out in Hope, people still mine for gold all the time. And so I think that that's really cool. And for folks that are interested, you do have your bill. I think it's out there. I don't know if it's seen the night of day, but HB 167, I believe, is the bill. And they can take a look at that, which is pretty exciting. You've done some work on it. And then the Janus decision, man, if you want to tackle that one, just make sure to like put on a bulletproof vest and maybe a helmet and hire some armed guards or something, because that is something that you will be a brave man if you want to try to tackle that one, because you'll come against a lot of heat for that. But Godspeed on that, because I think it's an important issue.
Yeah, I do as well. And the gold and silver thing, taking that just a little bit further, there's a thing out there called goldbacks, and you can actually Google goldbacks and it will bring up, I think there are 3 or 4 maybe states that have produced their own goldbacks, and it's actually we call them specie, but it's like a dollar bill, except it's made out of gold. And it's 1/1000th of an ounce, and they have different denominations that have more gold in it. And that's what sort of allows us to, having this law in place will allow us to use those as legal tender. So really, really interesting, and even interesting more from what could we do as a state? Could we put out a goldback, say, and have the Arts Council have a contest for people that could wanted to do Denali on the face of it, or maybe a mushing team, Iditarod mushing team or something like that. A float plane, that would be Alaska currency. It would be a huge, tourist thing. So anyways, lot of fun. That's
awesome. So let's say somebody's listening to the show and they're a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, or they are got 9-to-5 jobs. They don't have a ton of time. How does somebody make a difference in this crazy political world that we're in? Do emails and phone calls work? Do they not work? Do Facebook messages how can somebody tangibly make a difference in the small amount of time that they have between having a job, taking care of kids, shuttling kids to sports? What's a good way for folks to get involved?
Yeah, really good question, actually. And email messages are always welcome. Phone calls are always welcome. We do track those, especially when they concern bills. We put them in with the bills, so we know what the public sentiment is. And I mean, years ago when the PFD first started falling apart, we had thousands of emails, and now it's down to hundreds or even just dozens of emails from people saying they support the PFD or they don't support the PFD and that sort of thing. So I can't stress enough to keep the cards and letters coming. I would say that follow the 3 B's, right, from college: be brilliant, be brief, and be gone. But sometimes the letters get a little too long, but a couple of short paragraphs saying who you are, what you're doing, what you believe in, with respect to a bill, those are always welcome. And I save all of those. I have oodles of files on my computer with different bills and that sort of thing. And, the good and the bad. I will say that social media has become a problem. I campaigned on being more accessible on social media, and Facebook now seems to have started down the route that Twitter is on, where people believe that they can say anything and do anything they want on Facebook, and personal attacks are never welcome, but respectful debate on the issue that is at hand is always welcome. So I don't know how we can get to that without people's emotions getting in the way, but
yeah, my 2 cents on that is, my advice to people are listening, if you want to try to entice your representative to listen to you, it's not a great place to start out by screaming at him or her, calling them names. You will never get what you want. It'd be like if your neighbor showed up to your house, banged on the door, and started screaming at you. How many times are you going to ever listen to that neighbor? You're not. You're going to tell them to get out of here. If the neighbor shows up and wants to have a civil conversation with you, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to listen to that neighbor. So folks that are trying to get across, just be a nice person. And,
Right.
you can still be bold and out there and state your points and be compassionate and passionate. But the folks that are jerks and those kinds of things, they're just never going to get what they want, unfortunately, because they're going to be stopped, listened to before they even start because of their attitude. So last question to you is this, Representative McCabe. For those of you that are listening, we have Representative McCabe who is with District 8 right now. I think it's going to change January 1st. He is in his freshman term still, which I think is still the correct language to use. He's actually running for re-election. And so the last question to you is this: how does somebody get in touch with you? I know you're running for re-election, so you're juggling that with still being an elected official. How does somebody get in touch with your campaign if they want to help out, volunteer, make phone calls, knock on doors with you? And then how does somebody learn about the bills that you're working on? How does somebody go about both of those things?
Well, you can do both of them from one page. So I have a link on my vote. It's votekevinmccabe.org. And from that page, there's a link to bills that will take you into the state website that shows you the bills that I worked on in the last, that I sponsored and co-sponsored in the last several 2 years. So that's an easy way to do it. There's also an AK Leg app for the bills. If you want to download that app, you can search for my name and you can or pull my name up and click on that, and it'll take you to the bill sponsorship page, which will give you all the bills that I co-sponsored and sponsored. So, nice. But the campaign page is votekevinmccabe.org. And of course,
what if one of your constituents wants to get a hold of your office? What do you guys have, a generic 800 number or something like that people could call?
Yeah, but I don't know it.
That's awesome. I'll put it in if you send it to me over the message, I'll put it in the, it's like one of the things that people most want to know about. How do I get in touch with, this person or that person? So we'll put it
it is on the AK Leg app, and it is under my name on there. And if you call the Juneau number, it will automatically forward to the LIO in Wasilla. Nice. Where we are. So,
well, do you have any last minute things you want to chat or say before we head off here?
No, one of the things I was kind of laughing when you were talking about be respectful and be kind. And when I first got down to Juneau, I was cruising through some of the bills and doing some research on the bills, and I ran across this deal where they list all the emails of the people that support this bill or don't support this bill, and I happened to run across one with my name on it. And I read that and I'm like, oh dear, how do I get this out of here?
How do I just delete that real quick?
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I wasn't very friendly to start off with. So.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you being on the show. Thanks so much for being on, Representative McCabe, and good luck in your reelection. We appreciate the work you're doing in Juneau and in District 8. And for those of you that are listening to the Must Read Alaska show, we thank you for listening. If you like the show, feel free to leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify or any other places that it's on. And you can always download our app, the Must Read Alaska app, on the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store. It's for free. Just put in there Must Read Alaska, and you can find it right there for free. We put a lot of time, work, and money into the app, and we give it to you for free. We don't have a paywall either on our website. A lot of our competitors make you pay to read more than 2 sentences of their news. We don't. We survive off of donations from folks just like you that are listening. And so if you like our stuff and you want to donate, you can go to mustreadalaska.com. On the right hand side there's a donate button. That's how we pay our bills. So it's Suzanne and I that are trekking along, competing against folks with $1 million budgets and 10 staff deep. And so we appreciate everybody's donations. Until Monday, I'm signing off here from somewhere in Alaska, technically in Hawaii this week, but we thank everybody for listening, and thanks so much.